Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hidden Archives. This is another video I'm producing as part of my class Historical Professions as I work toward my PhD at Liberty University. In this episode, I will trace the history of Scots Irish settlers from their origins to the present day. The backcountry of the Appalachians was settled by Scots Irish immigrants who originally came from the borderlands between England and Scotland. This had always been a wild country in the British Isles and was the home of the Picts, going back to the Roman era. These were tribes who would paint themselves blue before charging into battle naked, as referenced by various Roman writers. Even after strong monarchies were established in England and Scotland, this border region was a law unto itself, with its own distinct customs and folkways. Locals would often raid both to the north into Scotland and to the south into England. When King James I came to the throne, he decided to forcibly move many of these borderlanders to the Ulster area of Northern Ireland, setting up the Ulster plantations. The borderlanders he settled there were Protestants, while the rest of Ireland is Catholic, this being the origin of the conflict that persists there to this day. By the end of the 17th century, though, many of these people known as Scots Irish were migrating from Northern Ireland to the New World, settling mostly in the backcountry of the Appalachians. In his book, The American Universal Geography, published in 1796, Jedediah Morse recounted how the Tuscarora tribe was driven out of their lands in the Carolina backcountry to allow for settlement of the area. He said, in their first encounter with the Indians, they killed 300 and took 100 prisoners. After this defeat, the Tuscaroras retreated to their fortified town, which was shortly afterward surrendered to Colonel Barnwell. While many of the newly arrived Scots Irish fought the natives regularly, there was also a lot of intermingling and intermarriage going on, with some Scots Irish going native and dressing like Native American tribes surrounding them. To the extent there are accounts of Scots Irish men of the period attending church while wearing only buckskin breechcloths and moccasins, and carrying tomahawks along with their rifles. Scots Irish women also often dressed in buckskin outfits similar to those worn by the natives. The wealthy plantation class from the lowlands regularly scoffed at the Scots Irish, labeling them with the pejorative term cracker. A minister named Charles Woodbridge, while speaking with more decorum, was also critical, likening the practice of wearing their clothing in a form-fitting fashion to nakedness, saying they had the practice of, quote, rubbing themselves in their hair with bear's oil and tying it up behind in a bunch like the Indians, being hardly 1 degree removed from them. Initially, after American independence, the backcountry had little representation. This began to change with Tennessee and Kentucky gaining statehood, and the upland areas of the other states gaining representation. In a speech in 1808, Joseph Alston of South Carolina said of efforts to increase representation of upland counties, the subject is not interesting merely to the backcountry. For though certainly the most oppressed by it, the inequality complained of in the representation is of by no means confined to that quarter. Throughout the early 19th century, Scots Irish continued to be underrepresented in most of the southern states. When the War of Secession broke out in 1861, they were ready to fight to defend the Confederacy against invasion, but most had no vested interest in slavery. They were fighting to defend their homes, nothing more. When the Confederate Government instituted a draft in 1862, but exempted large slaveholders, many Scots Irish became disillusioned with Confederacy. Sam Watkins, a Tennessee Confederate, said of this, "There was raised the howl of rich man's war, poor man's fight. The glory of the war, the glory of the South, the glory of the pride of our volunteers, had no charms for the conscript." The areas settled by the Scots Irish remain some of the areas of the country where individualism remains strong, as does a distrust of centralized government, high taxes, and the like. Other things that are part of the legacy of the Scots Irish, for better or worse, are country music, bourbon, and NASCAR. This concludes my presentation. Thank you. Have a nice day.